Hello everybody. Hope all is well on your side. Please do not hesitate to write me by emails or on Canvas for anything concerning the material I present or the assignments. We start the course by talking of behavioral rules, that is, rules about behavior. This is an important topic for several disciplines, amongst which psychology. Psychological schools, as behaviorism or related approaches, have investigated the concept of conditioning, that is, how the behavior of an agent is or can be adapted to certain circumstances. Two main types of conditioning have been recognized. The first type was first recognized by the experiences with dogs conducted by Pavlov. Pavlov was working on a completely different subject, some investigation of the salivation and digestion of dogs. He used to give something to eat to the dog after he was taking some 10 samples from their mouth. He then noticed that after a week he started the sampling, the amount of saliva increased enormously, so much that he was not even able to take those samples. And this happened with all dogs. Dogs were starting saliving only by seeing him entering into the room. He started then performing experiments in a scientific setting, with an objective stimulus as the sound of a bell. Salivation was then discovered to be a learned reflex behavior anticipating the food associated to that stimulus. A core point of classic conditioning is anticipation. We internalize what we expect will happen by the given conditions, so that we will be better prepared. In the dog example, the rule implicitly learned is if a bell rings, I will be given food, or more generally, in certain conditions I will obtain something. A few years later, Skinner started the infamous yet successful experiments of behaviorism. He showed that, for instance, mice could be trained to press a lever if by pressing the lever they were able to obtain food. He pushed this success up to deny the need to take into account a mental element to explain behavior, and trained a pig to prepare its own breakfast, including tea and omelette. This type of conditioning is called operant conditioning, and it differs from the previous one for the central role of action. The implicit rule that has been internalized by the mouse is that when in the box, if you press the button, you will obtain food. More in general, in a certain condition, if I do something, I will obtain something. This anticipation of action is useful to engage in fruitful interactions with the environment. The central point of operant conditioning is that a certain context or condition is used to select a certain behavior, which in turn produces a certain consequence. By modifying the consequence, one can modify the selected behavior. One could use consequences which are positive and rewarding for the agent to reinforce or promote a certain behavior. Vice versa, one could use negative or punishing consequences to demote behavior. Note that learning can take place with respect to positive and negative actions. If action, then do action. If condition, then do action. If condition, then avoid to do action. Behaviorism is today considered to be too simplistic to reflect the richness of the mind, in particular the human mind. However, some psychologists looking at all kinds of explanations given by humans for their behavior discover that we indeed refer to categories that can be associated to operant conditioning when explaining why we did something or decided not to do something. Any action can be explained either as keeping a positive stimulus which is present at the moment of taking the decision, curing or escaping a negative stimulus, acquiring or obtaining a positive stimulus, or preventing or avoiding a negative stimulus. This is called the PAC, prevent, acquire, cure, keep, framework of motives of action. But what we refer to when we talk about action? Action is intentional behavior, not random movement. Ability is the potential of an agent to perform an action. This ability is the absence of that potential. Intention is the agent's commitment to action, or stated differently, intention is the mental state present after deliberation that drives the execution of a selected plan of action. By this definition, we see that intention contains the goal, or intent, together with all could be foreseen in planning. For instance, if I decide to go to the dentist, I'm also accepting that there is a risk of having some pain, although I don't have the goal to have pain. A basic action scheme could be drawn by using a Petri net. The agent has a certain motivation that makes in sure that something perceived is a motive for action. For instance, I'm thirsty. it's a motivational component, and a glass of water in front of me, it's a motive for action. This generates an intent or goal, something to be done. The agent selects the possible action depending on its ability. So I decide to take the water. If she has no ability, then there is a failure at the level of intent. If an action is available, then she performs it. I drink the work. I drink the glass. Now, if the environment is in the correct disposition, the action can have success, bringing to the desired consequences. If not, the action will fail, bringing to some other consequences that are not drawn here in the diagram. For instance, I failed because there was no water in the glass, and so I remained thirsty. A concept related to the concept of action is responsibility. We, in the sense of humans' incapacity of taking decisions or moral agents, we are held responsible for actions, not only because we are deemed to have a reasonable control on our bodies and minds, but also because we are deemed reasonably able to foresee the consequences of our actions and to qualify them according to given social norms. Foreseeability is related to rules about normality, what we expect to happen in the world. Qualification of behavior in terms of good or wrong is related to rules concerning normativity, what is at collective level desired to happen in the world. Cases in which any of these options do not apply, for instance because of a mental disease or an agent being a child or an animal, there is no responsibility. Given this framework, we can identify the following types of action failures. We have failed attempt of action. Something went wrong, and the action did not produce the expected outcome. Then we have recklessness, or presence of foreseeable side effects. Something went wrong, but the problem was due to an error in predicting what would have occurred. The agent could or should have known that there was a risk of having a wrong outcome. Finally, we enter in the domain of deliberated behavior. We can have the intention of not doing something or negligence. The agent decides not to perform something that he is expected to do, and the intention of doing actively something wrong. The first is an action failure in terms of control, the second in terms of foreseeability, the third and fourth in terms of social expectations, respectively as negative or positive actions. And with this, we end our overview on behavioral reinforcement and action. Thank you for your attention.